What's up, team? Quick one for you this week. So, even though you're all at kind of different stages in your programming, when I'm doing form reviews or working with clients in person, I keep seeing a lot of the same issues pop up. So, this week I wanted to note one thing that really stood out, which is the setup on the seated overhead press and the barbell bench press. So, here's the deal: your setup makes or breaks your lift. If your setup is off, even just a little, you're going to lose strength, stability, and it's going to affect everything downstream. So, today I'm going to walk you through exactly how to set up. First, we're going to do the seated overhead press. Then we're going to look at the barbell bench press. So let's get to it. Okay, so like I mentioned, the first place we're going to start with is with a seated overhead press. A couple of things to note: we're going to look at the adjustment of the angle of the back of the bench, and then we're also going to look at the height of the bar, and then thirdly, we're going to look at how close the bench is to the bar itself when it's in the J hooks. So first, I have the bench angled back slightly. It's one notch back from being completely vertical. I do this because it's easier on the shoulder itself. Takes a little pressure off the shoulder joint. If you have any type of shoulder impingement or shoulder pain, this can be a little bit easier on the shoulder itself. Okay. Now, if you don't have shoulder issues, or you just prefer a more vertical back, there's nothing inherently wrong with it being 90 degrees or vertical. But for most people, as we age, this is a little bit easier position to handle for the shoulder. So either way, pick the one you choose. For my clients, I prefer that it's angled back slightly. Then, the next thing we want to look at is the bar height when we're seated. So, we have a seat, and we notice that I want the bar to be about chest height, too high, and then I got to kind of push up to unrack it, and if it's too low, then I got to kind of lean down to unrack it. I also don't want it completely up high, because if I fail, then I have to push it all the way back to the top to try to get it back into the hooks themselves. So having this position of the barbell height to begin is really good. And like I said, if I fail, I can just put it back in the J hooks, no harm. So then the third thing we want to look at is the relationship of how close the seat or my chest is to the J hooks or the bar itself. So I want to roll the bar back and get a good idea of how close I am actually to the bar itself. So from here, if I have to lean in, I kind of have to lean in a pretty decent ways to get to the bar. But what I want to make sure is that when I lean in, I'm not having to lean in too far. But also at the same time, when I am back in the seated fully upright position or doing my set, I don't want to have to worry about hitting the J hooks. So in this case, I'm going to scoot in just a little. That way it's a little easier for me to unrack, press. And so this is the bottom or the start of my first rep. I'm far enough back to where I don't have to worry about hitting the J hooks. So I can do my set, not worry about hitting the J hooks. And when I'm done, all I have to do is just lean back forward and I can drop the bar. That way, if I fail, there's no harm. I'm not having to stand up with the weight and put it back in the J hooks or worry about dropping it all the way to the floor. I'm also far enough back that I don't have to worry about hitting the J hooks with the bar or the plates themselves. Okay, so now that we've talked about the seated overhead press, we're going to talk about the barbell bench press setup. A lot of the same things apply: the distance of the bench in relation to the bar, the height of the bar in the rack itself. So what we want to do first is make sure that the bar is at the correct height. And then we also want to make sure that the bench is far enough forward or back so that it allows us to get the bar in the correct position before we unrack. So now, caveat to that is if you have a bench that has the bars attached to it, so the bench is not adjustable, movable like this one, it's attached to the rack itself, then the first part of adjusting the bench doesn't apply, but adjusting the height or the starting position still does apply. So I'm going to lay down. We're going to figure this out. First thing I want to do is lay down under the bar. And I want to make sure that the bar height is high enough so that I'm not starting from here, I see a lot of times I see people unracking the bar from this height. Essentially, you're doing a first rep just to unrack it. So that is not what we want. We want to be just short of lockout. So from here, for me, when I lock my arms out, I'm about 1.5 inches, 2 inches above the J hooks, and then I can pull it straight out and be in a good position. And then when I go to rack it again, I only have a couple of inches for the bar to fall before I'm ready or safely back in the J hooks. The second thing I want to make sure of is that when the bar is at the front of the J hooks, the bar is directly above my eyes. And so in this case, it is actually a little closer to my feet than being directly over my eyes. So what I want to do is I'm going to adjust and scoot down just a little. If I needed to, I can move the bench to make that happen. But in this case, I have plenty of room. I can just scoot down on the bench. And now my eyes are directly below the bar. Then from there, I'm actually ready to do the press. I didn't talk about this on the overhead press because most of the same rules apply, but we're going to talk about it here. So now that I'm ready to do the press, the bar is directly over my eyes. It's in a position, the J hooks are set at such a height that I don't have to press too far to unrack it, but it's not down too low either. So I have those two boxes checked. So I'm going to grip the bar. Then I want to walk my feet back towards my body and get in a good planted position. Create a slight arch in my lower back. Pull my shoulder blades back and down. Grip the bar with my thumbs wrapped around the bar, not taking a suicide grip, which is the thumb behind the bar. I actually want to wrap the thumbs around the bar, shoulders back and down, press up and unwrap, bring the bar directly out over the chest with the arch maintained and the feet continuing to drive into the ground. As I lower the bar, I want to bring the elbows in slightly to the body, gentle touch to the chest, up quick. So the one thing I see a lot of people do on the bench press and the overhead press is they will let the elbows flare and have this very wide press. Remember, we want to try to bring the elbows in slightly closer to the body, bring the bar down under control, gently touch the chest, and press back up quickly. Then, because we set it up well, all I have to do is to push the bar back to the rack itself and let it slide down to the J hooks. Now I'm safely racked back in. Hope this helps. If this helped you dial in your lifts, this is exactly the type of stuff I teach inside the Fit Parent Project. You see, it's not about doing more. It's about doing things the right way so you can actually make progress without wasting time. Inside the Fit Parent Project, I help busy parents get stronger, lose fat, move better, and stay consistent with a plan that actually fits their life. So if you want help with that, head over to my Instagram page at Stephen Mathis Coaching, shoot me a DM, and I'll point you in the right direction. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.